Hey guys, on this week's episode of the Miles to Go podcast, Richard is back from Europe. He finally made the trip happen. They started off in Copenhagen. We talk about Tivoli Gardens and all the fun things they got to do. He had his first experience with Accor Hotels as well. Then they rented a car, drove to Billund, Denmark, the home of Lego, where he digs into Lego House, a place my son and I visited not too long ago as well. And they ended up satisfying Mrs. Kerr's granola crunch side by staying on a farm. And yes, folks, there was an ostrich. We wrap up this week's show with another chapter in my battle with Chase that may just result in me putting my Chase cards in the drawer for quite some time. All that on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Richard is back from Europe. I am home for a whopping 52 hours. We are here to recap everything that happened with Mr. Kerr overseas and talk about one topic that I have today. Mr. Kerr said he did not want a preview of the one topic, so I'll be dropping the one topic on him later in the show. Mr. Kerr, how the heck are you?
I'm tired, man, but I'm doing good. There's a lot going on in the Kerr household, and the last 2 weeks have been a lot of fun and just a lot of craziness. But excited to get into the trip recap and all the great things that happened and explain to everybody why I'm retiring to the country of Denmark one day.
Yes, I was living vicariously through you, watching you hit some of the spots that Charlie and I visited at Lego House, which was a ton of fun for us as a family, and looked like you guys had a good time as well. We did not stay on a farm, but I don't want to give too much away about what's coming next. So a little bit of housekeeping for those just tuning in. You can text us at 571-293-6659. He is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels when he's not hanging out on a Danish farm. And I am at Pizza in Motion. Email us at pizzainmotion.com if you have questions, comments, or concerns. Actually, no, send the concerns to Richard. I'm all about happy.
Send them my way. I can handle your complaints about this free podcast that you voluntarily choose to listen to.
And we do get people who complain about the free podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
All right. Well, when last we recorded, there was a more photogenic, friendlier version of a co-host in Clint Henderson. He was a righteous fill-in for you. I don't know. Did you happen to watch or listen last week, or are you blind to what we talked about?
I saw the title and I saw your co-host, and he's so much better looking than me that I got a little jealous and I refused to listen. So I'll have to catch up on the plane this week back to New York.
I understand. All right. Well, we'll dig into one of the things he and I talked about a little bit later because there's updates, Mr. Kerr. But first, I want to hear about your trip because this was under the heading of third time's a charm, as you had to cancel this trip twice before being able to pull it off.
Yeah, we had Europe as a family planned previously twice. This year, the old blood clot got in the way of that, so I was excited to finally be able to head off. A lot of stuff going on in the work. This could not have been a worse time to take off, but there's never a good time in the day job these days to disappear for a week. But we caught the Thrifty Traveler deal back in May for SAS finally opening the business class space through Flying Blue. So they only had 2 seats per day from the Atlanta to Copenhagen nonstop, which just launched last year from SAS. I look at this flight all the time. It's never had space, and since we booked this, it's never had space again. The few times I've checked. But that meant it was 45,000 Flying Blue miles per person and $36. Screaming deal. There were only 2 seats per flight. So Thomas and I flew on, I think it was Sunday night. And then Emily and Mary were the next night right behind us. I'll quickly go through how we booked it. And then, talk about some of the loveliness of just being in Denmark for a week. And as I understand it now, those prices on the SAS redemptions have gone up. It is more Flying Blue miles. Still reasonable amounts. I think less than 70,000 depending on which city you're going from. But you're not going to catch, I think, 45,000 anymore. SAS was a great product. We flew the A330 from Atlanta. A typical, I guess I would call it Scandinavian service of like not warm and friendly, but not cold, just very matter of fact. And like, here you go. Can I get you something? Here it is. What's next? Let's go. Let's move on. Seats were very comfortable. We sat in the middle 2 seats. It's a 1-2-1 layout. Thomas and I in the middle. Thomas slept the most that he's ever slept on a flight before. He slept over 5 hours. I slept about 3.5, which is doing pretty good for me on a transatlantic flight.
What time was that departure?
We left at 8. I liked it because it was I think we took off about 9. We sat on the taxiway in Atlanta for a very long time, which is very strange for Atlanta. But I like it because we landed at like 11. So you're not getting in at like 6 a.m. and then have the whole day to kill on 3 hours of sleep. By the time you get through everything in Copenhagen, it's a very short train ride, which I just cannot say enough wonderful things about Copenhagen public transport. Like, it's just the best. It's like afternoon, and it was great. That flight was awesome. Again, Copenhagen Airport, very easy to navigate. You can use the SAS lounge upon arrival. They do have showers. It's a bit of a weird airport layout where you land and they let you off into the departing passenger area. It's not like other airports where they segregate you and you have to go through arrivals and customs before you can basically access anything. You're right there. They have the passport control set up for the connecting gate areas or the arrivals. Go through passport control. You're still in the secure area. You're still airside. So you can go into the SAS lounge and grab a shower if you want to do that. If you are, because they do have, I think the flights from New York City do land in Copenhagen at like 6 or 6:30 in the morning, which would be rough to try to get the whole day. And you're typically not going to get an early check-in my experience in European hotels. Although we did get a little bit lucky 2 days in a row. So Thomas and I stayed the first night because the girls weren't there at the Admiral Hotel, which is a Choice hotel, the Sind collection. I have not redeemed Choice points, man, in a very, very long time. It was 20,000 points instead of, I think, what it would have been the equivalent of $300 US. Again, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing affordable about Denmark, period. There's nothing affordable in the entire country. You're just going to fork out for whatever you got, and points options are pretty limited. But, I'll kind of go through it. Admiral Hotel, right by, it's spelled Nyhavn, so all the Americans say Nyhavn, which is like the main port area, tourist canal street that have, the colorful houses and the restaurants. I think it's pronounced Newhavn, which is like New Harbor is basically. So even though it looks like Nyhavn, Newhavn, something like that. Could not be a better location. Really cool hotel. Definitely Scandinavian experience. The room was a shoebox. We had a double bed. There was no air conditioning. It was only like the weather was fantastic versus the rest of Western Europe, man. Like, I don't know how, like, I can't do Western Europe in the summer. It's too hot and there's no air conditioning. There's nowhere to cool off. And Europeans hide water like it's like something that I don't know if they just walk around permanently dehydrated, but like there's just like, no access to water whatsoever unless you're going to go into a store and buy really expensive bottles constantly. But it's right on the waterfront. Again, if you have Choice points, fantastic. Like, they've just renovated everything. Just be aware there's going to be a very small room, but whatever, it was fine for one night. Breakfast was absolutely fantastic. Not included unless you have, I think, Choice Diamond status. They did not recognize my Choice Gold status at all. It's not branded as Sind Collection anywhere. It looks like an independent hotel, again, which is fine. However, we did get to check in. By the time we got through the train and got there, it's about an 8-minute walk from the metro station. They did have a room ready. It was about 12:30.
Nice.
She said, "Hey, Mr. Kerr, welcome. I can upgrade you guys to a waterfront room instead of a city view. So like, this right side of the hotel looks at the water, left side looks back at the city." And I was like, "Oh, great." She was like, "Yes, it'll only be $100 USD per night." And I was like, "Oh, sorry. I thought you were offering me a Choice Gold." I was like, "It's like, no, we're good because we're just here for the one night and then we're out." So anyways, if you're looking for a great location, scenic, really good hotel, I would definitely book it again if I had the Choice points at the Admiral Hotel. Throughout all of this, we've done this. Have you heard of these? It's such a tourist thing, man, but we're 2 for 2 on it. So they had the Copenhagen Card, which is you pay one flat price up front, and it includes all of your public transportation and basically anything in Copenhagen that is remotely in the tourist realm. It's included in admission. A lot of people made YouTube videos about this. A lot of people saying it was not worth it, but they were like, "Do the math. You're not going to go to all these things. Blah blah. It's not worth it." And I was like, "I'm just doing the quick math here." And like, even like metro tickets for 4 of us for the week would have been a lot. Anyways, we ended up just hammering this thing and absolutely getting every single dollar out of the Copenhagen Card. The way the metros work there is you don't have to buy a ticket or scan in every single time that you take it, but they do have spot checkers. And if you get caught on the metro without a valid ticket, it's a very expensive fine. And I'll tell you, the second stop after the airport, Thomas and I got our tickets checked, which I'm like, "Oh, you guys are targeting the tourists here to make sure they bought their tickets." But the Copenhagen Cards was that. Every single mainstream, including entrance to Tivoli Gardens, is included on the Copenhagen Card. And like, we went to so much random stuff that we wouldn't have done, just like the first day when Thomas and I were trying to kill time to like stay awake. We ended up walking 13,000 steps around Copenhagen after we landed and just going to like, they have some really kitschy things on there, like the Guinness World Records Museum. But, Thomas loves Guinness World Records. So like, we did the corny thing and he thought it was great, even though it was this touristy, cheesy thing. But they have the castles on there. They got the palace, the gardens. Anyways, I highly recommend it. And the great thing is, if you buy it as an adult, it includes a kid for free. So like, you don't have to buy them a separate public transport ticket and entrance, everything was included. I'll tell you the one thing that was annoying is a lot of the entrances are timed to these things, and you can't really book it ahead on the Copenhagen card except for a couple things. So you got to kind of get there early or just kind of roll the dice and say, hey, I have the Copenhagen card. They'll be like, hey, the next entrance I have is in 3 hours from now. Are you okay for that? And we would always go find something else to do. And it ended up not being a big deal whatsoever, but like absolutely got the value. So I highly recommend getting the Copenhagen card if you're going to do that.
Well, yeah, and I pulled up the prices real quick, and so the single day card maybe isn't the greatest value. Really have to get you really have to hit it hard. It's $88, but the price goes down pretty significantly. A 2-day card is $129. A 3-day card is $150 and kids card is up 12 to 15-year-old is $88 for 3 days, but kids 3 to 11 are free, as you said. So just for perspective, Tivoli Gardens is 170 Danish kroner, which is going to be like $25.
Yeah.
So I mean, so if you guys did Tivoli, over the course of a 3-day pass, you've paid for 25% of your car. Actually, well, with 2 people, you paid for almost 50% of your car just there with Thomas getting in for free.
I did the math real quick. We went to the Natural History Museum, Botanical Gardens, Rosenberg Castle, all the little corny things they had on there, but also the metro rides. Also, I don't remember all the things. I scan that thing constantly. Every time I'd be like, this would have been $50 just for us to go in this one thing. And I bought it off of Viator, and I went through Capital One shopping the day before, got to Target the next day, and got like 25% back. So like I paid 25% off the prices you're looking at. And it just ended up being a great deal. So I was like, who are all these people not recommending this thing because it's quote unquote too touristy or something? Like, you're going to these places anyway. You are a tourist. Like, it's okay.
Well, I could see the whole, like, if you can't, depending on timing, like maybe.
Yeah, for one day, probably not. Like,
yeah, right. Yeah. And as you said, like, if you only have certain times that you can get in, stuff like that. But I mean, like, just looking at the different ticket types and prices for the metro, I mean, just riding the metro a couple times a day over the course of 3 days is going to pay for at least half the card.
Yeah. And it even covers things outside of Copenhagen. Like our last day, we checked out of the hotel and we rented a car and we drove across Denmark, like across the whole country to go to Billund. We stopped at the Viking Ship Museum, which is outside of Copenhagen, about 40 minutes. And it's still included in the Copenhagen card. And the prices for like the family of 4, that alone was going to be like $80. And it was like, we timed it so that we left the hotel on the 4th day of the card and like scanned in 30 minutes before the card expired and got another $80 of value, which, by the way, that Viking Ship Museum is awesome. Like, you guys have to go to that. It is not touristy whatsoever. It's very academic, and they have recovered Viking ships from like the year. They can tell, like in one of them, they're like, this ship, we can tell from the wood and the rings in the wood, was built in the summer of 1042 in Dublin, Ireland. And you're like, what? Like, so it was great. So I highly recommend Copenhagen card. Again, going through Viator, getting a shopping portal, which Viator is always on, and just like we hammered that thing and just got all the value. And it's just peace of mind of not having to fork the card over every time you get somewhere new, again, because it's not affordable. Accor points, man. Let's like, we went through the Novotel Blackfriars that you had. There were only a couple of Accor properties in Denmark. Really in Denmark, but in Copenhagen. I looked at the Mr. and Miss Smith stuff through Hyatt. It was going to be too many. And again, you got to get 2 rooms. No matter what hotel I looked at, you got to get 2 rooms. Looked at the Marriott's because you're just not the best location. And like, I just don't want a generic Marriott stay if we're going to go to Copenhagen. Hilton options like the Nim Hotel is inside of Tivoli Gardens. I think it was 800,000 points a night for 1 room. So I'm looking at 1.6 million Hilton per night.
I've always wanted to stay inside Tivoli, though. That does look cool.
It does look cool, but outright in cash prices there for a base room for our week were like $2,000. Like, we're going in peak seat. Like, you could not be any more peak than we went. And it was not bad at all. But I ended up using the Accor points and the Accor status from the Bilt Rent Day promo that we did this year, and ended up at the Hotel 25-hour Indre. There's 2 25-hour hotels, 25 hours of brand. Indre just means inner, so it's right in the inner city. Fantastic location. Got 2 rooms on the points. Ended up, you can do cash and points mix. Ended up, I think, paying $300 out of pocket total for 2 rooms in, a fantastic location. This hotel, man, is really cool. Super vibey. I would equate it to like a classier W brand where like everything is just cool and done well. And I will tell you, very liberal if you're going with small kids. Like, there is a vending machine in the lobby that I'll have to send Jeremiah the picture of this so he can put it out. There's nothing, you can't tell anything from the machine except what it is. It was a adult concession entertainment vending machine that had products. But again, you're thinking like, oh, that sounds like a trashy place. Like, I don't know how to explain it. You guys go look at the website, 25-hour Andre. It was a great, like, the lobby was great. The bars were fantastic. The room, we got upgraded to, they called it literally a large room was a category of room, which was 2 category upgrade. the biggest rooms I've ever had in Europe, and we were right next to each other. We had 2 of them, mini bars included, which is, again, water in Europe. Like, I cannot tell you guys, like, you just need so much water. And it was not even hot in Copenhagen, but we did, we're averaging 15 to 20,000 steps a day exploring the city. Like, you're just like dehydrated. But little snacks in there. You can do the breakfast and then use more Accor points to wipe the breakfast off. That's the thing about even Accor Platinum. You have to be Accor Diamond to get breakfast. Accor Platinum breakfast is only included in Asia, I think, even on the weekends. But
were you able to wipe your breakfast charges?
So here, it's a great thing. So one thing about Copenhagen, right, is the coffee and the Danishes are one of the reasons you go see the city. So eating breakfast in the hotel was not really even in the docket for us, which is why I was not too concerned about it. And we were staying, some of the best pastries and coffee were within a 5-minute walk of the hotel. But one morning we didn't just feel like going out, and I think it was raining. It was raining on and off, very Scandinavian weather for us every day, carry the umbrellas and the jackets. So we ate breakfast there one morning. It was pricey. I think it ended up being equivalent of $40 a person. At checkout, I went to the desk and said, hey, just purely for the research purposes like you did, hey, I want to use the points to cover the breakfast charge that I did. And to their credit, something was down with their system, because both women at the front desks were lovely and trying their best. And they're like, we do this all the time, Mr. Kerr. I'm really sorry. Something is wrong with our system right now. Like you said, I was like, should I be getting this? She's like, yeah, I'm going to send you a text to your phone and you'll get a code, and then we can redeem it. And like, they tried, and they're like, do you want us to go get the manager? And I could tell that they were really giving it, like, just like you had said, this is usually not a problem. So I felt good about coming back and telling everybody, hey, I think off of Ed and I's experience now, you should be able to do this. I just got a little bit unlucky. And they're like, we can send you an email afterwards. And I was like, don't worry about it, really. Like, it's just one breakfast. Like, I just wanted to know if you could do this.
Yeah. Okay.
You get a lovely welcome letter and welcome amenity. I felt like the platinum status was treated well. I could go up to the front desk anytime and tell them, hey, I want, can you go clean my room? And somebody would literally within 20 minutes be there doing a full service on the room. I could be like, hey, the mini bar is empty. And he would hand me like cans of cold sparkling water, or even they had cans of beer in the mini fridge. And he was like, how many beers do you want? And I was like, oh, really? Like, this is like sweet. Like, so that hotel, you can just go look at the pictures. I'll send some to Jeremiah so you can scroll through here. There's like a reading room and a library, and like just the lobby was this sculpture of library books all glued together, making this weaving. You just take a look at the YouTube video and see it. Really fantastic. I can see why people love that experience, especially if you've wiped it out with points, making what would have been, this would have cost us for 2 rooms it ended up being 3 nights. We would have been well over $2,000 out the door. So just really fantastic value. Best things we saw in Copenhagen, Tivoli Gardens. We got the unlimited ride pass for the kids. Dude, the best thing about my kids being this age now, I think I texted you guys while we were there, and Tivoli Gardens, is that you don't feel like you're in an amusement park. The settings are lovely. There's benches everywhere. There's music going on in the background. There's stuff to look at. Yeah. We got the kids the unlimited ride passes. Emily and I didn't even, we each rode like 2 rides. Like, I had to ride the historic roller coaster through the mountain. And I rode one other thing with Mary, but like Emily and I would just sit, get a beer, get a cocktail, find a bottle of water, send the kids off to ride, and you're sitting in a lovely garden in the middle of Copenhagen with perfect 70-degree cloudy weather, and you're just having a fantastic day. And the kids can go and ride their hearts out. You never feel safer than you do. It feels
very safe in there. Yeah, like
very safe in the entire city. Yeah. Not once did I ever even come across a situation where I was like, I was still on guard for like pickpockets and stuff in the main train station, but like never even once did I get my spidey sense go off the whole time that we were in the country. And it was just fantastic, man. A great time. Rosenborg Castle is really cool. Botanical Gardens started pouring down rain on us, but it's also beside the Natural History Museum, which is kind of in this weird old castle thing. And we had a private food tour that our buddy Howie set us up with. We did a walking tour, joint food and history with Brigitte. If you want her information, highly recommend. She took us through a few of the markets. We tasted the best cheese in Denmark, the best chocolate in the world, certified by whoever does that competition every year. Some of the Danish gin that Emily and I got to try, not the kids. And then we went over to the meatpacking district where they have like barbecue and ice cream, and got a whole lot of just, that's what you got to do, right? That's always my favorite thing, is to spend that time with a local going around. And she's like, hey, all these things you've probably been looking at for the last few days, let me tell you what it means. Thomas ate as many Danish hot dogs as any kid could ever eat. He's just a hot dog fiend and crushed it. And it was as lovely. I have not been back to Copenhagen since I was in high school, and it was just fantastic, man. Like, it was so good. I mean, even with kids, right? There's clean public restrooms everywhere going around Copenhagen. Like it's just like all the little stuff, man. Like other cities in Europe are like, oh, you have to use the bathroom. Good luck. Like, and you're thirsty. Like, not gonna happen. So that was kind of our time in Copenhagen. Again, rented a car, incredibly expensive to rent a car. I ended up going through budget that had something on Expedia. Actually, that was just, dude, I'm talking about like I was going to rent a car total for 3.5 days. And I couldn't find anything on any direct website, Europa Car, Hertz, National, Budget, Avis, for like under $1,000 for 3 days. Like, I mean, for something that was going to be, hold the 4 of us and 4 suitcases, right? 4 carry. Actually, I had 1 check bag and 3 carry-on size bags. Like, you had to get something that wasn't going to be the micro cars.
Yeah.
We took off. But any questions about Copenhagen or anything I missed based on your experience there or what's going on?
I would say for those who are Disney nerds, Tivoli Gardens was a significant inspiration for Walt Disney. So if you do spend a little time in Tivoli Gardens, you're not going to see like lookalikes, but there are a lot of things that Walt Disney did that sort of rhyme with things inside Tivoli Gardens. So
we went to Tivoli on a Thursday in peak summertime. I was a little bit nervous about the crowds. It definitely got crowded, but there is no skipped lines, anything. Very socialist Denmark. Everybody gets in line, and there's one line, and that's it. All the lines move pretty quick.
Yeah,
I don't think Thomas and Mary stood in line for anything more than 15 minutes. Maybe one ride was 20 minutes, but everything else went quick. We did get there at opening. The line to get in at opening was all the way, like literally 400 yards down the block, and I was like, oh crap! So if you're gonna get there for it to open, like get there 30 minutes before. But again, the crowds ended up not being a problem. We literally stayed all day from open to. No, wait, we did. We took a break and we came back and stayed until close to try and get some of that nighttime because they have lights through all the trees and everything.
I was going to say Tivoli at nighttime is one of my favorite things in Europe. I've never been there in the wintertime to see what it's like, but I would just say I would encourage anybody who goes to Copenhagen, and if Tivoli is on your list, go at night because walking around with the lights and the gardens and all that stuff is just, I mean, it feels so. And for anybody that thinks this is a theme park,
it's not. No.
It's definitely not. I don't really know how to describe it. It's sort of like, Central Park meets, a quiet Disney World or quiet Disneyland, if you will. But the walking around at night, favorite part of Tivoli. No, and that, like the first time I ever saw it, I flew in. I had a late flight into Copenhagen, and I was meeting friends at Tivoli at night, and I really didn't even know what it was. It was, I don't know, late 90s or something like that. And I just remember like walking in at night and being like, holy cow, like this is incredible. So.
My only problem was it's July in Copenhagen, so it's not getting dark really until after 10 o'clock, and the park closed at 10. So we could only catch twilight, but it was still a fantastic time.
All right, so before we talk about ostriches, let's talk a little bit about Billund. Billund.
Yeah. A little bit nervous always in renting a car and driving in a foreign country, but we took the metro back to the Copenhagen airport. I, again, found something through Expedia. I think... Dude, it was $500 for 3.5 days to rent what ended up being an Audi A5 wagon, which was a very nice car that they gave us. But picking up from the Copenhagen Airport rental car station, you get on the shuttle bus. They can tell you can walk. It would have been like a 25-minute walk with all of our bags. So we took the metro back and then got on the bus over to it. Very easy to pick up. No international driver's license required. Just checked my passport and my U.S. driver's license. And off we went. They drive on the right-hand side. The car was automatic. Again, super nice. All kinds of buttons and technology that I never even figured out 3.5 days into it. But driving in Denmark could not have been easier. Excellent, fantastic infrastructure. I did not drive through any city centers. I mean, I did around Billund, but that's nothing compared to like Copenhagen.
Yeah.
We stopped at the Viking Ship Museum. There's a free parking lot right there next to the museum. But again, this was now a Friday in peak summer season. We got there right as the museum opened. And by the time we left, 2.5, 3 hours later, there was no more parking spaces. So I don't know what you were going to do. But then took off. It was about 45 minutes from the airport to the Viking Ship Museum. And then it was about 2.5 hours from there to the Castle Hotel at Legoland, Billund. We stopped at a few rest stops. We went over the awesome, massive bridges. It was a wonder. Like you can take the train kind of from Copenhagen to Billund, but the last 45 minutes is a bus. I would just again, if you can find something that's affordable to rent a car, it was great because you see everything. Billund is in the middle of nowhere, Denmark, so you really get off the beaten path and you're just driving on, small country roads. But then all of a sudden, the huge windmills pop up and you're seeing the farm life, and it was really cool drive. And you get to the home of Lego, which, they have Legoland, the original park there. They have 2 themed hotels, 1 themed campground, and then there are now these other kind of resorts have popped up there. So it's kind of like a quieter, way more chill Orlando of the U.S.
Yeah, that is way more chill.
Way more chill.
Yeah, like 1/1000th of Orlando.
Yeah, but there's like other little mini theme parks and things that are around. But we stayed at the Castle Hotel for 2 nights. Again, absurdly expensive. This is now a weekend in July, which is again the most peak that you could do. I booked it through Capital One Travel to use the $300 Venture X credit. We got the family room that was like the base room at the Castle Hotel, which is a little bit cheaper than the Legoland Hotel, but literally right next to it and no less inconvenient by any means. You can just walk over to the Legoland Hotel and get in 30 minutes early to the park. And then if you walk out the main entrance and turn to the right, there's a little sidewalk that goes to, it's a 3-minute walk to the park entrance. Theming was cool, a little bit over the top. I will say we stayed at that Legoland Hotel for 2 nights, and I was good, man. Like 2 nights was all I could handle. They play this music in the background at the Castle Hotel, starting at 8 in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. I cannot hear that music anymore. The airport is right next to you, so the big planes taking off and landing they just are a noise factor. If you got little ones or something trying to take a nap, those planes are going to be loud. Going through the included breakfast buffet was, I would call it adequate at best, man. But just like you had said, like
the guy called it. It was like, don't venture past the free breakfast.
Yeah, it definitely didn't pay for. Again, we had the rental car. So the great thing is, I just went to the grocery store and got there is a microwave in your room at the Legoland Hotel, so was able to pick up some things for us to have for snacks and a couple of in the room meals. But I think if you got kids of this magic age, like they have some cool scavenger hunts and things that you can do around. And again, you get in the park 30 minutes early, and we had the mini land where they've recreated the best or the most popular scenes and cities in the world out of Legos by yourself, and it's not crowded. It's just lovely. So again, 2 nights was enough. Legoland, we did 1 day, and I bought the ride and reserve to skip the line. We were like the only people using this thing, man. Like I could not figure out if it was a cost thing. It was expensive, but not prohibitively expensive. But because it was a Saturday, and it was going to be our only park day, right, in peak season, I was like, we can't get there and spend all day standing in line. So let me just spring for it. I don't remember what it costs. I'm sure you can look it up there. I bought it directly from Legoland. So no discounts. I think for the 4 of us, including entrance for 1 day and the ride and reserve, I was looking at $500, if not more, for all of that. But I can tell you it was 1,000% worth it because nobody else was using this. It's right on your phone. You can do 1 ride at a time, beginning exactly at 10 o'clock when the park opened. I picked the first ride. We rope dropped the park, really, and there was no rope drop. I again sent you guys a picture or a text where I was like, hey, I'm at the early entrance from the Legoland Hotel, which is a bridge that goes right into the park from its own entrance, 15 minutes before the park opens, and literally nobody else is here. Like, we're standing here by ourselves. And I was like, I'm either at the wrong place or the Danish are super chill. And it ended up being they were super chill. So we rode, we could have ridden everything in the park 4 or 5 times if we wanted to, using the ride and reserve thing. You pick a ride that tells you, hey, your window opens in 8 minutes. Your window opens in 9 minutes. And even during the peak days for the most popular ride, which was one of the coasters, we only had to wait 18 minutes until our window opened, which is it's just like Disney. As soon as you tap into the first ride, it puts a QR code up on your phone. The ride attendant scans it. You skip the line. I never waited for anybody else in line. Maybe one family was in front of us on one of the coasters for the ride and reserve line. It's a separate entrance. And I felt bad. I was like, are we the obvious Americans here using this thing? Or is it why is nobody using this? It is so fantastic because the lines, again, peak Saturday did get up to 45, 50 minutes that you would have to wait for the most popular ride. So if you're going to do that, then absolutely spring for the ride and reserve.
Well, I think, and I think sort of like the way Japan works, where the locals go to the theme parks more often. I think a lot of the locals around Billund buy the season pass, and you said you bought the Reserve and Ride Ultimate, right?
Not the highest one. It was the middle one.
The middle one, yeah. So I'd say the
highest one is prohibitively expensive.
Yeah. The middle one for perspective, park ticket plus the middle ride, which is I think the one that we bought as well, the Express. That one's between $100 and $150 per person between the park ticket and the Reserve and Ride, which is pretty reasonable for a quick day in the parks. There is a more affordable version, which is sort of like a virtual line pass. And we debated that one, but again, like you, I only had 1 day there. But I even think that the virtual line pass option would work. That one's just under $100 a day between the park ticket and the virtual line pass. And you mentioned Miniland. Well, like, I think their Miniland there is awesome. And there's a bunch of stuff to see through the park if your kids are that age where they like Lego stuff. So the way the reserve and ride works, you don't wait any less time. You just don't wait in line. So you click for a ride, and if it's a 20-minute wait, then 20 minutes later you're getting your callback time. And so you spend time doing other stuff in the park. So
Yeah.
to Richard's point, don't buy the ultimate. Buy either the middle package or the entry level reserve and ride.
The kids and I stayed, again, 30 minutes open until the minute it closed. We were some of the last people out. Emily went back to the room for a couple hours in the afternoon, took a break. But the kids and I just kept riding everything. Some really cool rides, some really rinky stuff. I never figured out the Ninjago thing about what you were supposed to actually do with your hands. And like, it just didn't really work. You're like chopping your hands, but nobody explains to you what you're doing. And we were like, I can't figure this one out. But on the other hand, they have the shooting game in the temple, which you can, unlike Buzz Lightyear, you can actually see where you're pointing and shooting, which is great. I was like, oh, this is cool. And then all the coasters I would call kiddie coasters up to, at most, medium, like thrill, like not even really medium, still entry level coasters, but pretty good theming and pretty fun. So that day was fantastic. The next day we went to the Lego House, which is I had honestly not familiar with this until you and Charlie started looking at it again. But in the city center of Billund, which is a very small city, they've created an interactive museum where it's like several, like, how would you explain the Lego House, man?
Yeah, so they did this as sort of like a commitment to the city. So it's a combination of free and paid activities. So the free part is they created 6 rooftops for kids to play on. And so anybody, their goal, like Lego's big thing is play, obviously. But they want to encourage free play. And so there are STEM playgrounds on the roofs of the building, and anybody can play there. They're free to get in, along with a bunch of stuff out in front of the parks as well, the big steps and things like that. And then inside, it's like all the things any young kid who likes STEM would enjoy. And then if you're a Lego fan at that age, it's, it's Lego times a million for a kid who's, under the age of 15.
I thought the best part was in the basement, away from all the kids.
The museum, yeah.
Is they have a history museum, which I did not know anything about the history of Lego. Like, I just didn't. I'm not a big Lego fan.
The wooden duck.
Yeah, the first. But the guy, Old Kerr, what's his name? I don't know how he pronounced it in Dutch.
Hans Oldkirk.
Not Dutch, but Danish. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wooden toy maker in Billund that eventually moved into plastics. The factory burned down a few times, and they doubled down on plastics and continued to make other toys besides Legos, really, until, I can't remember what's the original name of it. Was like Connecting Building Block Set or something terrible.
Yeah. But
Lego comes from the Danish for a shortening of free play, something like that, or play well, something of those two words. And it's just the museum was so well done. I was like, this is one of the best museums I've ever seen, especially for like a self-branded, like, like we're telling our own story. I was like, this is great. And I have some of the best sets, and it was fantastic while the kids played upstairs. And, we had a good time. We did the Mini Chef restaurant. I got tons of Instagram DMs after I posted a few stories about this, so please tell more about this. There's a restaurant called Mini Chef. You do have to have reservations. The reservations fill up at least a week in advance during peak season.
100%.
Definitely get your reservations as soon as you can. You don't have to pay anything for the reservation or even put a card down. You just grab a time slot. A lot of people in line when it was time for us to check into our reservation were trying to get on the wait list, and the person up front was being honest, like, hey, I'm probably not going to get in today. It's too busy. This was now Sunday in peak season. But it's essentially a restaurant that's just, again, an interactive Lego experience. So you order by putting a Lego set in a, correct color and shape of what you want. You pick from 4 different categories of food. The adults pick 4, the kids pick 3, plus a golden brick to get a special mini Lego piece. They got a screen at your table that scans, what you want to eat. Your food comes in a Lego brick, but it comes on a conveyor belt and then is pushed to you by a couple of robots. I think Robert and Roberta, who do this, and just make it a super fun, cool experience. And again, unlike Disney, the food was actually very tasty. And like true Danish, Scandinavian culture, they talk about real fresh ingredients, very limited waste, and it's a set price no matter what you order.
And not that expensive either.
It was not. It could have been way more expensive. I would say, again, it was a typical Danish menu. It was no more expensive than anything else I paid for in Denmark on every meal. And then again, if they have like a little menu thing that says like, hey, we weigh our waste every single day. This is how much we do. But if you are hungry, you can ask for extra sides. You couldn't get more protein that you pick from, which you could go to the waitress and waiter and say, hey, I would like some more of the sides. But the food was great. It was a cool experience. I can definitely see why the reservations go out, and it's just right there in the entrance of the entire Lego house, and then you can go back upstairs and go to all the experience areas. Thomas and Mary would have stayed there and built all day, the entire day, but we had the Danish farm stay that Mrs. Kerr was excited about to wrap things up for our last night in Denmark. So I was like, I had just kind of, after your review and a few other reviews, thought that, hey, I think 2 nights at this Legoland hotel is going to be enough. What's something, off the beaten path that we can do and get away from the hustle and bustle, which I know Mrs. Kerr is a big fan of. And again, on Expedia, man, I have never used Expedia for a trip, since college days, but just when you're looking for things off the beaten path, sometimes I find, or for cheaper deals on the car rentals, I just find it to be helpful to take a look around. And something popped up when I was looking for somewhere cool to stay for one night called the Billund Farm Holiday. And I was like, what is this thing? And then I looked at the reviews, and no matter whether it was TripAdvisor, Google reviews, or Expedia reviews, everybody was like 5-star. Everywhere was like, this is a fantastic place. And I was like, all right, well, whatever. And it was way cheaper than anything else in there. And Billund Farm Holiday. Go look it up. Google it. They have their own website. It was literally 5 minutes from the airport, which the Billund Airport is like the outside of town, and it's just in farmland. So you drive 5-10 minutes further into farmland, and it is a little compound that has 1 million yard toys. They have a jumping pillow, a zip line, soccer field, pedal carts, a million ping pong table. They have little family rooms, and then you can get little cabins if you wanted. But since we were there for the night, we had a family room that had essentially a queen bed and bunk beds with a bathroom, but it had a little mini kitchen. It was great because we just stopped at the grocery store again and brought food to make for dinner out there. And they have all the farm animals out there, like ostrich, emus, deer, pigs. And you're out in the fresh air of Denmark. Beautiful, beautiful farm countryside. The kids literally just played on all these different things, and we walked around and saw the animals, and you're just out chilling, man. And the weather was so perfect that we just left the front door open and sat there and had a beer and cooked a little dinner and just had a lovely last night in Denmark before flying out of Billund the next morning. So it was great. I think 2 nights there would be perfect enough. Again, go to the grocery store. Half the people, it wasn't very busy at all. Again, you just got tons of space. Half the people there were taking taxis, dropping them off and picking them up the next morning. I think a rental car just to do this whole thing would have been so much easier, especially the grocery store trips combined. And then actually, Mary and Thomas ended up leaving their iPad at the Castle Lego Hotel. So Emily had to drive the rental car back and actually got their iPad back that they had left in the bunk bed. So just little things like that, super helpful. But it was a really cool last night in Denmark before we flew out the next day.
Yeah, we did not have a rental car, but I'd agree. 2 days is plenty. I'm not even sure. I mean, if you're just doing Billund, the drive sounds very cool. I think if you were just doing Billund, I think everything's pretty reasonably walkable or taxiable. There's a handful of grocery stores nearby, stuff like that. But I would definitely echo hitting the grocery stores as opposed to eating at the Legoland Hotel.
Yeah. There's so many more little intricacies. Again, if anybody has any questions, just shoot me a DM on Instagram. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me these days, and I'm happy to answer it. I'll quickly go through the flight back, and then we beat this trip into the ground. We were the only seats I could fly or find in business class, and we had to go back to New York City for, I guess we'll talk about in a minute. So we were flying from Denmark back to New York, all 4 of us. About 2 weeks before we left, I had found a flight from Billund to Zurich on Swiss Air at 6 p.m., spend the night at the Hyatt place in the Zurich airport, and then wake up the next morning on the nonstop Swiss Air business from Zurich to New York. By the time this trip was going on at the last day, literally sitting at the farm while the kids were playing, Emma and I were like, oh my God, we have to kill all of tomorrow, and then we got to spend the night in the airport, and then we got to spend the whole next day on the plane back to New York. We really wish we could just knock this trip out tomorrow. Dude, I hopped on an airplane where I booked the Zurich thing and did a search. And I kid you not, it popped up 4 seats. Air Dolomite, if that's how you pronounce it, which is a Lufthansa regional carrier. Billund to Frankfurt, 5-hour layover, Frankfurt to Newark on United Polaris. And I was like, all right, here we go. Sold. Ended up having to pay the change fee, even though I have aeroplane status. But it ended up being, I think, in Canadian dollars, 400. So whatever that is, $350. Ritz-Carlton card, I can erase $300 of that. I have no problem getting that. So $50 to change the flights and save ourselves an entire day.
Yeah.
Plus, with that late flight, we're landing in Newark at 8 p.m., which means it's just time to go to bed, which is great because everybody's tired. and there's no traffic to get from Newark there.
Well, in fairness, you're scheduled to land at Newark at 8. It is Newark.
I was about to say before I pulled the trigger on this, and I could do the entire change online. I didn't have to try and get Airplane on the phone from the Billund Farm holiday, which was the other thing that pushed me over the edge of like, oh, I can just click this button and get it done. Even though it spun for a long time, that I thought it froze up. Actually, got the confirmation emails before the web page loaded. Was, oh my God, it's going to be 8 p.m. in Newark. So I checked the weather real quick in New York for the next day, made sure there was no big storms forecasted to come through, looked at the operations and thought, you know what, like they're at least hopefully going to give priority to getting the big international 763 into the airport. If something goes wrong, that is going to screw up the entire schedule of where that thing's supposed to go next. Ended up having no issues, man. We did have to sit on the tarmac in Frankfurt for a long time. I think they say the air traffic control, but we pushed back and then we didn't move for an hour. Which is always a bummer because the kids are like, 45 minutes in, like, I gotta go to the bathroom. The flight attendants are like, sit down. You're like, we've been sitting here for like, we're still at the gate, my man. Like, we're not taking off. Like, stop. This is such a pet peeve of mine, man. We've talked about it before on Frontier flights. We're like, you're sitting at the gate. You haven't moved in an hour. You get up to go to the bathroom. Flight attendants like, sit down. We're an active taxiway. I'm like, my man, I hear you, but stop. Like, let the kid go to the bathroom. Like, stop doing that. If we're on the runway, we got a problem, but we're at the gate. I told you guys, like, I've flown Polaris twice across the Atlantic in the last year. It has been my favorite experience so far out of Virgin Atlantic, SAS, British Airways. Like, the seats are just comfortable to me. The bedding is just comfortable. I really enjoyed it. This was on a 763, so it was 121 staggered. I again texted you. I forget how much I text you guys through these trips, but Polaris cabin was half empty, maybe because it was a 5 p.m. departure. Nobody wants to do that out of Europe, land at 8 p.m. Again, I prefer that because you land, you go to sleep. You don't have to kill the rest of the day. When we pushed back, I kept expecting them to go back to the back and pull people up, man. But that is a very premium heavy aircraft. Like, I don't know how many 40 plus seats on the 763.
Right? Yeah. I think it's 44.
I had like 20 had to be empty. So service was super quick. This was the first time Emily and I both, like 10 minutes into the flight, realized it. It was an all male flight crew up front. I've never had that before. And it was probably the best American carrier service I've had in a long time. That's just an objective statement. I just thought it was interesting that, I get the best service from the first time we ever had an all male crew. They were fantastic with Mary and Thomas. Again, it's just really weird family. That's not the best family layout for business class at all. I had Mary was behind me, so every time I had to kind of turn around, sit up, and look over the privacy wall to make sure she wasn't like choking or something like that. But every time I would do that, the flight crew, he'd be like, I got it, man. Like, we're gonna take care of her. You don't have to look back here every single time. Like, I'll take care. I was like, I appreciate it, thanks, man. And it ended up being a great flight. That was 70,000 airplane per person. Again, I have had those airplanes sitting there since we did the rent day, so it was 35,000 Bilt points per person. Just like, again, the Bilt point, like, the objective ridiculous value that I got out of all of this from Bilt points from the hotels and the flights was great. But fantastic flight back. We were all just completely exhausted and then headed into 3 days in New York City life, which was a lot. But I'll round it up by saying, if you're looking for a family destination, again, cool the entire time, never above 70 degrees, half sun, half rain, but it rains for like 15 minutes and then it goes away. It was just a wonderful, wonderful trip that would have cost me God knows how much, man, if it was not for points and miles. Like 4 round trip business class flights, I was, you're talking 20 grand for all of this stuff. So
I'd say more, but yeah, I'd say you could spend 20 grand on 4 business class round trip tickets.
Yeah. Well, one of my favorite family trips that we've done. Trust the combination of Thomas and Mary not being babies anymore, but it was lovely, lovely, lovely place to be.
Well, I would just say that in occupying the Kerr seat for just a second, everyone is entitled to their wrong opinion, and I would not rate Polaris as highly as you do. I think it is a solid product. I think they probably have the best bedding that I've had.
Yep, definitely.
But otherwise, I'd say, put me on something like KLM or something like that. I find the service a lot warmer, food better, that sort of stuff. And so, but yeah, I mean, solid product. Like, the nice thing about Polaris is, typically speaking, the ways that you can book it aren't going to cost you a fortune in terms of fuel carrier surcharges. If you're booking it through United or through Aeroplan. So I think, like, relative value wise, I think Polaris scores highly because you're typically not going to be paying $500 or $600 a passenger out of your pocket to ticket onto those seats. And so that's where I'd say overall the value is good. I think there's definitely products I prefer more.
Yeah, I think it was $130 a person through Aeroplan, which. Right. Again, getting back
Eminently
that way
reasonable.
from Europe to the U.S. is just as good as it gets.
Eminently reasonable. Well, I think based on our timing, we definitely got to park home away from home.
Yeah.
For next week. Do you want to talk about your new home, or do you want to talk about my somewhat mystery topic?
Let's go. Well, I've talked enough, so let's go to your mystery topic first, and then I'll quickly round out with the latest Kerr news.
Okay. So follow up from last week. Short version is a couple of weeks ago, the good folks over at Chase stopped accepting payments from me on a couple of my Chase Inc. cards.
You've had. This is not a new occurrence for you. We've
No.
talked about this over the years many times, where they're like, "Don't give us your money."
Yeah, it's been a little lumpy here and there, but our patterns are pretty much the same as they've always been in terms of what we spend on the cards. There is no manufactured spending whatsoever on any of my cards. It's fairly, straightforward, and for the most part, it's been, pretty much, right as rain. Like it's, I love Chase Ultimate Rewards points, but I'm a business owner, and so kept having these problems over the past week or so with them accepting the payments. And it's like, all right, well, maybe just because we sent a payment, like we've never had a problem sending payments mid-cycle, but as you know, that can be a problem at times. Sometimes that flags into the car company. So it's like, all right, well, let's just wait. We've paid off everything that we paid the balance down to zero. Let's just wait for the statement date and statement to close, and we'll just see what happens. Statement came and went, and available credit didn't free up. So I had Erin, who works for me, call. They would not give her any information, even though she's authorized on the accounts. So I called and wasted 45 minutes in the car yesterday, only to be told that, yes, your accounts are under review, all of them, even the ones I'm not spending on, all my Chase Inc. cards. Even though, by the way, I was approved for the Chase Sapphire Business Reserve earlier this week, which now I don't even know if I can use. And they told me, don't worry, everything will be resolved by, wait for it, as we record on Saturday, August 2nd, August 10th.
Oh, great! Because businesses don't need to use their line of credit.
Right, exactly. And I have employees texting me like, hey, like my company car is out of gas. What do you want me to do? And I just it was just a real simple. It was I hate to say it this way. It was a very simple decision for me. It was like, hey, can this be resolved by Monday? Because I had this call yesterday, and she goes, oh, sir, like I'm happy to put notes in there, but with the weekend, I just don't think there's any way we can resolve this by Monday. This was, call it 5:30 p.m. Eastern time yesterday. I'm like, okay, well, if it's not resolved by Monday, I'm just gonna, move everything to different cards. And I hung up, and I told her this, and I called American Express, explained the situation to American Express. Again, it's after 5:00. Hey, I've got these two employees. I need to add employee cards. Is that something you can do? And could we have the cards by Monday in Vegas for these employees? She's like, yep, no problem. Happy to get them expedited for you. Just need their dates of birth so we can expedite the confirmation process. Yup, got it. I was on the phone for maybe 15 minutes. I'll have two American Express cards delivered Monday morning. And I got to tell you, I hate to say this because you know how much I love Chase Ultimate Rewards. And I don't use American Express membership rewards as much as I do Chase Ultimate Rewards. I'm done with Chase for a while. And the sad part about it is for kinetic energy, I'm just setting all of the Chase cards aside. Like I'll hit the spend on the Chase Sapphire Business Reserve, but I mean,
if you're allowed to use it.
Yeah, if I'm allowed to use it. But I mean, my Hyatt card, my Sapphire, my Aeroplane card, like I don't have a desire to do business with them right now because they've completely screwed up an incredibly busy time for me. You know everything that's going on, and literally all my employee cards stop working. And don't worry, they'll be working in 10 days.
Do you not? Surely your spend is at a level where you have like a private banking relationship, or you have a person to call.
Well, I used to with Chase, but I mean, I can't even tell you the lunacy of it. I talked about it last week. They can't verify me on the phone because they say there's a problem with my cell phone number. So they can't send a two-factor authentication code to my phone. They won't let me use an authentication app. So all they'll do is they hang up and call you back, except 50% of the time they never call you back. And so it's like
it is mad. That is madness that is what's going on.
So that's why we moved all our banking from Chase, because I literally couldn't get customer service. And since I haven't had problems with Chase in a while, since we moved the bank accounts away, I had forgotten about this two-factor authentication problem. I'm trying to get credit card for people. I'm like, okay, well, Mr. Pizzarella, we're going to hang up and call you back.
No call.
And 45 minutes later, I call up, hey, is somebody going to call me back? So I just, until they can, like, I love Chase Ultimate Rewards.
Not worth it.
Everything else in the ecosystem is a dumpster fire when it comes to managing this for a business. And it's just, American Express cardholder since 1994 don't have these issues. So set it and forget it.
Fair enough. I would do the same thing. Like if it's going to come down to my employees at a gas station and I can't fill a car up, then I'll take MR over UR.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've come to that point in the show where we talk about all of the red lines that you were never going to cross.
That's because my all the other we'll call it red flags in my life dictated that I had to cross some red lines to lower the red flags. The short of it, I put up a tweet the other day, is the Kerrs are moving to Manhattan. I never thought that day, especially this fast, would come. Well, here's a short of it for everybody. The day job at Bilt just continues to do amazing things for us, and it continues to be on the right trajectory and open up incredible opportunities personally and professionally for us. That I was made an offer of. Bilt Travel has traditionally lived within the loyalty team at Bilt, which is how we started it 4 years ago, and where I've been happy, very happy for it to live and use the infrastructure of the way we organize the company. It is, essentially we have pods, and every pod runs as an independent startup, and every startup has your own business lead, your own marketing team, your own engineering resources, and you run that as a standalone business. We've run travel within loyalty, but our founder came to me and said, look, travel is big enough now for Bilt. Some of the stuff we'll probably talk about next week that needs to be its own business, and I want you to come and run the business. And I was like, great. That's awesome, man. Super excited. When do we start? He's like, well, I need you to be in New York City to do that. And I was like, I'm here all the time. He's like, no, you're not. He's like, I hear you, man. From there, it just came down to, certainly not leaving life in Georgia for a life in New York City without some considerations, which they were gracious enough to meet. Where, all of this has happened in the last 3 weeks. This was not even in the cards or thought 3 weeks ago for Emily and I. And they just, it's turned into, we signed a lease on Tuesday. So we flew back from Denmark to New York City. We have a place to live. Yesterday, we got Thomas and Mary into a unbelievable school in Manhattan. The apartment, the Bilt office, and the school are all within a 12-minute sup ride and walk of each other. So we have our entire lives, at least infrastructurally, set up now. We have to actually get from Georgia to New York in the next 2 weeks so we can be settled in before school starts. This will be the first time Thomas and Mary have ever gone to school. They've been homeschooled their entire lives. Mary is incredibly, incredibly excited about school. She is such my social butterfly. Thomas is my independent, stubborn, very much mini-me thinker that he's like, I can't believe I have to spend my day at school, but this is not like a school that I went to here in the public schools of Georgia. He's going to have unbelievable opportunities, and we're excited, man. It is a lot. It is, going from 3 weeks of not having a clue that we would do this to having leases signed and school set up to now 2 weeks to get up there and get settled is, as everybody can imagine, quite a lot. But we're going to take some deep breaths, get through it. And I don't have to do this freaking commute anymore. I have to do it. Actually, by the time you're listening to this, I will be doing it for the last time to get up there. And then I have some Vegas trip scheduled, and we'll come back home, get everything settled, and take off all together. I'm very much looking forward to that flight in just a couple weeks where all four of us are together, and I don't have to leave or tell them goodbye. I've talked about the personal health things this year from the commuting back and forth. It'll be wonderful to have everybody together every single day, except where I have to go somewhere else besides New York City. And just, I am done doing the hop, man, from Atlanta to New York.
Well, that part I think is great. I can certainly vouch for the the woes of the travel life, especially since I'll be in New York. I'll be in Vegas until you get there. Look forward to seeing you there. I look forward to seeing this chapter for you guys. It has come together remarkably quickly, but I think it's come together in a way that I think is going to be pretty special for you guys. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. The stores will just change from gripes about Atlanta to LaGuardia to gripes about how much a gallon of milk costs in New York City, and figuring out, what that life is going to be like. It is going to be so different, even just from, living in a house here in a Georgia neighborhood to a building in Manhattan. So that's going to be a lot.
Well, we left a lot of stuff on the cutting room floor. We do have to talk about home away from home. Still need to recap my Rome trip. I've got some best bets and tips for the London segment of things. And we'll probably have some adventures of Kerr and pizza as told by the Vegas version next weekend. Probably happening very late at night since you have lots of things going on during the day. And I don't know what's open late at night in Vegas, but you and I will figure it out together.
I think everything's pretty much shut down by 8, I think.
Yeah, we'll have to figure it out. We'll see if anything's open late so we can get together. And by late for Mr. Kerr and I mean like 8:45.
Especially if everybody's familiar with Virtuoso Travel Week. These are marathon 16-hour days back to back to back to back. So a lot of fun, but exhausting.
All right, Mr. Kerr, enjoy your last commute, and I will see you in Vegas in just a few short days by the time this episode releases. Until we upload again, we've got miles to go.
Yep, still ugly. All right.
Again, I still feel like a train hit me. All right, let's look fresh and inviting.
It's something nobody's ever told me to look like. You make yourself look inviting.
All right.